Hello everyone. So today let us talk about the solution of class 8 half yearly biology paper. So the MCQs, let us check out the MCQs. The biotic components of ecosystem are all of these. Producers, carnivores, herbivores, all of them, they form a part of the ecosystem and they are all biotic components. They are all living organisms. Which are the principal sources of fresh water? It will be rain and snow. Principal sources, remember, all the fresh water which is present on our planet Earth comes either from rain or from snow. Pollination by water is called hydrophily. Consumption of tobacco leads to cough and irritation. The common method of reproduction in yeast is budding. The disease caused by Anopheles mosquito is malaria. We know that female Anopheles mosquito causes malaria. The carnivores constitute which trophic level in the ecosystem? So it is the third trophic level. First one is constituted by the producers. The second one has the consumers, the primary consumers or the herbivores. The carnivores, they come to the third level. Artificial pollination produces disease resistant seeds. So we are striving to improve the quality of the seeds. That is why through artificial pollination, we are getting better seeds. The active component nicotine is found in tobacco. The substances which can be decomposed into smaller substances are called as biodegradable. So they break down and they can be converted to simpler substances. The anther produces pollen. A state of complete physical, mental and social well-being is called as health. A plant parasite, Cuscuta. All the others, they are all animal parasites. Unisexual flowers are found in mulberry, mustard, pea, sunflower, all of them have bisexual flowers. The layer that contains ozone layer that traps most of the ultraviolet rays and protects life is stratosphere. Now we come to name the following. The power of body to resist and overcome infections, it is immunity. That is determined by how strong our immunity is. Animals that feed on dead animals are called as scavengers. So the decomposers, they break down the dead and decomposing organisms which include both the plants and the animals. But when we are talking about scavengers, they are feeding only on dead animals. A short swollen underground stem, it could be corm, rhizome, tuber, any of these is the correct answer. The production of fusion of two gametes, the first cell which is formed is the zygote. Flowing water under the aquatic ecosystem is called as the lotic. Now lentic is the stagnant water, whereas the flowing water, which is in the rivers and the streams and all, it is called as lotic. State whether the following statements are true or false. So, wind pollinated flowers produce pollen grains in large quantities. Yes, true, because many of the pollens are lost along with the wind. Parasitism is an association in which both partners are benefited. False. It is symbiosis that benefits both partners. In parasitism, the host is harmed, whereas the parasite gains the benefit. Pathogens are disease-causing biological agents. True. The immunity inherited from parents is called artificial immunity. No, it is the natural immunity. Artificial immunity is acquired later on. In grafting, the root portion taken from one plant is called as scion. It is false. It is called as the stalk. So, the root part is the stalk. Now, let us move on to the match the column. So over here we have proteins and antibodies. Proteins are actually antibodies. Predators. Who are predators? They kill other animals. Fragmentation. Spirogyra exhibits fragmentation. Spirogyra reproduces by fragmentation. Ectoparasite lives outside the body. The name itself says ecto. Ecto means outside. Influenza. Influenza is spread by droplet infection. Let us move on to the next question. Choose the odd one out. and name the category to which the others belong. Stigma, anther, ovary, style. Yes. So the odd one is anther because the others, they are all part of gynoecium, whereas anther is a part of androecium. Lion, rabbit, deer, horse. The odd one out is lion because it is a carnivore. All the others are herbivores. MMR vaccine, TAB vaccine, rabies vaccine, Salks vaccine. The odd one out is the MMR vaccine, whereas the others, they belong to kill germs. MMR vaccine does not have kill germs. China rose, P. Hydrilla, salvia. The odd one out is Hydrilla because the others, they all have insect pollinated flowers. So China rose, P and salvia, they have insect pollinated flowers. Plants, water, animals, microbes. Water obviously because plants, animals, microbes, all of them, they belong to the biotic factor, whereas the animals, they belong, the water, it belongs to abiotic factor. Fill in the blanks. Fungi, ferns and mosses reproduce by spores. The process of soil formation is termed as weathering. Carriers of specific germs are called as vectors. So pathogens are the disease causative agents, whereas the carriers are called as vectors. The tissue grows into an undifferentiated, unorganized mass, which is called as callus. The increase in temperature and warming up of the earth is called as global warming. Now let us move on to the next part. Expand the abbreviation AIDS. Acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. If you have expanded it properly, you will get the full marks. Write two characteristics of insect pollinated flowers. In insect pollinated flowers, the pollen grains are rough and sticky because they need to stick to the bodies of the insects. The flowers are large and brightly colored petals, and these petals are meant to attract insects for pollination. So these 2 points you can write. What steps would you take to prevent and control diseases? First and foremost, proper sanitation, because without proper sanitation, disease spread very widely. Then immunization, getting the proper vaccination and the proper immunity schedule that is there. So person should follow that. Health education, everybody must be educated about what is it that will keep them healthy. What is meant by food chain? Give an example of food chain. So food chain is a chain showing what animals eat, or rather you can say it's a chain of that extends from the producers, which are the provider, which are the source of all the food, to the various passing through the various animals that eat the food in a chain. So grass is eaten by insects, insects are eaten by birds, and birds could be eaten by further some larger birds, and so on. So that is how you give an example. So you just need to mention it briefly. Draw label diagram of germinating pollen grain. This diagram is already there in your textbook. So this is the diagram that you have to show. Explain an ecological pyramid. Now what is an ecological pyramid? So when we talk about an ecological pyramid, remember that it is a graphic representation of an ecological parameter. Now what do we mean by parameter? That means what is it that we are measuring? So we are measuring the number of individuals, then it would be the pyramid of number. We are measuring the biomass, then it would be the pyramid of biomass, or energy. Then it would be the pyramid of energy, which is present at each trophic level in a food chain. So remember, when we are talking about an ecological pyramid, we are talking about some specific food chain that is there. Right, one difference between communicable and non-communicable diseases. Communicable diseases, as the name itself suggests, it can spread from an infected person to a healthy person, but non-communicable diseases, they do not spread from an infected person to a healthy person. So non-communicable diseases do not have pathogens, whereas communicable diseases, they are spread because of the pathogens. Write the function of corolla. It attracts insects for pollination. and it also is responsible for protecting the underlying or the androecium or the gynoecium that lies inside. We come at calyx. It protects the flower during bud stage, and it also helps in photosynthesis because it is green in color. Plants are producers. Give reason. Why are they called as producers? Because they are the only organisms, particularly the green plants, they are the only organisms on this planet that are capable of preparing their own food. So they are responsible for the entire food which is present on the earth. So plants are responsible for producing that food, and that food is responsible for giving energy to the other organisms so that they can function properly. Now let us move on to the next part. The figure here represents the arrangement of different parts of a flower. Answer the following questions related to it. So when you look at this, you see, is the flower shown here bisexual or unisexual? We can see both the gynoecium is present over here, the androecium is present over here. So it is a bisexual flower. Label the parts A, B, C and D. So A you can see is the anther, B is the filament, then C is the ovule, and D part, the entire thing, is the ovary. Which part changes to fruit and seed after fertilization? So you have been studying it for such a long time. The ovary, the ripened ovary, changes to fruit, and the ovule which is present inside the ovary, it changes to the seeds, right? Define the term immunization. Now what do we mean by immunization? So it is a process by which a person is made immune or resistant to some infectious diseases, right? Typically by the administration of a vaccine. So immunization is when you administer a vaccine to someone so that they can develop immunity. So vaccination is the administration of vaccine, whereas immunization is the person being made able to develop their immunity so that they become immune to specific diseases for which they have been vaccinated against. So you need to understand the meaning of these two words, vaccination and immunization. They are very closely linked, but they do not mean the same thing. They are very closely connected, but they mean differently. Write two abiotic factors and explain how they are essential for the ecosystem. So we have temperature and we have water. Now temperature, see, temperature is very important for an ecosystem because we have seen that for the seeds to germinate into a new plant, an optimum temperature is required. So in very high temperature or in very low temperature, very less vegetation occurs. So an optimum temperature is very essential for the survival of the ecosystem. Then as far as temperature is concerned, then you would have seen then some flowers, they bloom when the temperature is high or when it is daytime. Some flowers bloom when the temperature is low or when it is night time, and likewise. So they determine a lot of behavior of the organisms in an ecosystem. Water, of course, it is an essential part because if there was no water, plants would not be able to perform photosynthesis. If they are not able to perform photosynthesis, then there will be no food. If there is no food, then there is no energy, and the ecosystem cannot balance itself or cannot run itself. So water is an essential ingredient. It keeps the plant turgid. It is very essential for us. Besides, our bodies are also made up of 70% water. So it is pretty essential that it is not only required outside the living externally by the living organisms, but it is also a very important constituent of our body composition. Write one difference between self-pollination and cross-pollination. So, in self-pollination, first and foremost, it has to happen in the same plant. Whereas in cross-pollination, it will happen in other plant, in a different plant, but the plant should be of same species. Right? So it automatically moves to, now what happens to the other plant? Here the pollination which is occurring, that means the pollen grains must be transferred to from the anther to the stigma, either of the same flower, right? So same plant is essential. So of course if it is same flower, then it does belong to the same plant. So either the pollen grains are transferred to the same flower, the stigma of the same flower, or to a different flower but in the same plant. That is self-pollination. But in cross-pollination, the pollen grains will always be transferred to the stigma of the flower of another plant but of the same species. Now if we talk about some examples, then for self-pollination we can have sunflower, pea, mustard. They are the examples of self-pollinated flowers. Now when we talk about cross-pollinated flowers, we have pumpkin, cucumber, papaya. So all these flowers, they will exhibit cross-pollination, right? All right. Why should you not allow water to stagnate near your house? All of us know that stagnated water breeds mosquitoes, and mosquitoes are vectors for several diseases. They are one of the major vectors that cause communicable diseases. So we can see that it is important for us that water should not be allowed to stagnate near our houses. So if there is any region in or around your house where water keeps collecting, then please take care that the water is thrown away and it is not allowed to stagnate. Explain the process of binary fission with a well-labeled diagram illustrating the process of binary fission. So binary fission, the diagram is given in your book. So we can get it from there. Let me just check if I can. Sorry. Oops, sorry, it is gone now. Wait a minute. So we got the, just a minute. So the diagram is given in your book and you can show it over here. Like you have one cell over here. Let us think about bacteria. So the bacterial from here, the bacterial the bacterial nuclide, it will divide into two parts. Then from here the constriction will start over here. The cell will start to move, the cell membrane will start to move inward, so that a kind of a constriction is developed over here. It starts to move in, and then after a while, so this nucleoid material, it is distributed over here, and after a while we can see that it divides into two individual cells. So that is how the binary fission takes place. Binary fission means that one cell, it will divide into two parts. Binary means two, and it is splitting into two daughter cells. So two daughter cells are formed from one parent cell. So there was one parent cell, and from the one parent cell, two daughter cells are formed. Expand HIV, it is human immunodeficiency virus. Give two examples of vegetative reproduction, where we can see vegetative reproduction by roots. You can see sweet potato, dahlia, leaves, bryophyllum, even in begonia we can see at times that the leaves, the vegetative propagation happens by leaves. Now let us come to this last bit. How does the atmosphere act as a protective blanket for the earth? Now explain. First and foremost, what does the atmosphere do is it absorbs the harmful ultraviolet rays. It absorbs the harmful UV rays that come from the sun, and also it reflects back the heat of the sun, the excessive heat from the sun, the excessive heat from sun rays. So these excessive heat from the sun rays is reflected back into the atmosphere, so that the back into the space, so that the earth, because see, atmosphere is like a blanket, right? So if it will trap a lot of heat, then the earth will become very hot during daytime and very cold during night time. But it reflects back the most of the heat from the earth's surface, which we receive during daytime, and traps a little bit of it, so that even during the night time the temperature remains quite comfortable. If it had reflected back the entire heat which comes to us from the sun rays, then the earth would have been very hot during day and very cold during night time. So the excessive heat which is not required by the organisms living on the earth is then reflected back to the space, and that is the reason why earth can receive just the right amount of heat and the sun's rays. So anything that is excessive is reflected back. All right, define first aid. Write two first aid measures in case of fracture and in cuts. So what is first aid? First aid is the first care which is given to an injured or sick person. The person might be injured, or the person might be sick, or sick person, before that person gets treatment from medically trained people. So this is the first care which is given to them. That's why it is called as first aid. Aid means help. So it is given before proper medical treatment begins, right? So till the doctor arrives, if you can put it in the simpler ways, till the doctor arrives. So you can say the first care given to someone who's injured or sick before the doctor arrives, or before proper medical treatment begins, that is called as first aid. Now let us talk about fracture. So what are you supposed to do if you see what should be the first aid if someone fractures a limb, fractures a bone? So first and foremost, what must we do is we must make the victim lie down comfortably, right? So we should ensure that the victim lies down comfortably. ऐसे जगह पे नहीं है जहाँ पर everything is टेढ़ा मेढ़ा or it is hurting that person. So first and foremost, we should see that the victim lies down comfortably. Then what we are supposed to do is loosen the clothes, or if possible remove the clothes from the fractured area. Loosen the clothes or remove the clothes from fractured area. Because what is the reason? If you do not remove these clothes and shoes, particularly if it is a fracture in the leg, in ankle or foot sole or somewhere there, then the that area starts to swell. So that is why it is important to remove the clothes as in clothings. So it could be shoes, it could be clothes from the fractured region. And most importantly, don't move the fractured part. Whatever part is fractured, wherever fracture is suspected, don't move that part. It should be immobile. If it is a fracture in a shoulder or an arm or something, you can put a sling to that to help them become comfortable. Now let us come to cuts. Cuts and wounds, first and foremost, wash. Wash for 5 minutes with warm water. So what will happen is, if there is any dirt there or any germ superficially present, then they would be removed from over there. Clean that area, and it makes that area clean. Then see if you can still see any foreign objects. If someone has been cut with a glass or some foreign object is, you can still see piercing, so remove the foreign object. So whatever the foreign object is, but how do you remove that? Try to remove. So it says don't force it, so it's like try to remove the foreign object with the help of either sterile gauze or cotton swabs. You can use cotton swabs to remove that, or you can use sterile tweezers. So if it's like some shards of glass that have that are piercing the skin or something, so try to remove these. But if not, if there is any foreign object but you do not have the proper tools, please do not try to remove it forcefully using anything which can cause septic or which can cause more damage to the person. So just take care of that. Given below is a diagram. Answer the following questions. So you can see the sun, the grass, then the grasshopper, then the bird, and then the fox, and so on. Which is the ultimate source of energy in this diagram? So the ultimate source is the sun. So all the energy that the plants are able to trap comes from the sun. Which is the top carnivore in the diagram? It is the fox, right? Because it is at the head of the pyramid. On the basis of amount of energy transferred, what does this picture represent? That as the energy transfers from one trophic level to another, it keeps on moving and it also keeps decreasing, right? Because whatever energy was received from the sun, it was transferred to the grass. Some of it is used by the plant itself, and then a part of it would be transferred to the herbivore, the grasshopper, which feeds on the plant. Then whatever energy the grasshopper receives, some of it will be used for the grasshopper's own activities, on metabolic reactions and all, and then some part of it will be passed on to the next organism, and so on. So we see that at every trophic level the energy transfer keeps reducing. So that was that for your question paper. I hope that you got all the answers and you have done well in your exams. Thank you so much for watching.